Sodium hydroxide dissolves organic tissue. It strips paint. It unclogs drains. pH 14, the maximum on the scale. Every year, 600 million soft pretzels are dipped into this exact chemical before entering the oven. 15 to 30 seconds of full submersion. Without it, a pretzel is just a twisted bread roll. Pale, crumbly, forgettable. Swap lye for baking soda and it looks half-baked. Only lye creates that dark, glossy crust like ceramic. The person who decided to dunk dough into corrosive liquid wasn't a chemist, it was a monk around the year 610, rewarding children who memorized their prayers. So, what do 30 seconds in a corrosive bath create? And what detail on the surface tells you if your pretzel is real? The story begins in an Italian monastery. Around 610 AD, a monk took leftover bread dough and twisted it into a shape. Two ends folded over each other, pressed down, forming three holes that looked like arms crossed in prayer. He called them pretiola, Latin for little rewards. The three holes represented the Holy Trinity. Children who could recite their prayers earned one. Those who couldn't watched. From Italy, the pretzel spread into German-speaking regions and became the Brezel. Medieval German bakers adopted it as their guild symbol. A pretzel still hangs outside traditional bakeries across Bavaria today. The shape carried religious meaning. Dough made only with flour, water, and salt, no eggs, no butter, making it one of the few foods allowed during Lent. German immigrants, the Pennsylvania Dutch, brought the tradition to Philadelphia in the 17th century. Hard pretzels came first, dry and shelf-stable. Soft pretzels followed on wooden street carts across Philadelphia, sold for a penny each. Vendors didn't need ovens on the cart, they baked in the morning and sold all day. But the real secret was never the shape. German bakers discovered that dipping dough into an alkaline bath before baking transformed the crust entirely. An ordinary roll became something else. Dark, glossy, almost ceramic, with a flavor no other bread could match. That technique, the lye bath, is what sets the pretzel apart from every bread in the world. The dough is nothing special. Flour, water, yeast, salt, butter, malt syrup, kneaded until the gluten develops. Smooth, elastic, slightly tacky to the touch. You could bake a dinner roll from this exact recipe and nobody would know the difference. Each portion, about 120 grams, is rolled into a rope roughly 60 centimeters long, thick in the middle, tapered at the ends. The baker twists both ends, folds them down, and presses them into the body. 3 holes. A shape unchanged for 1,400 years. Then comes the step that changes everything. A vat of food-grade sodium hydroxide dissolved in water at 3 to 4% concentration. pH 14. The same compound in drain cleaner, refined to food safety standards. Each pretzel is submerged for 15 to 30 seconds. When it comes out, the surface feels slick, almost soapy. That's lye reacting with the outermost layer of dough. Here's what happens in those seconds. Imagine the dough surface as a brick wall. Lye crashes in and tears it apart. The broken pieces are sugars and proteins ripped loose from starch and gluten. They blend into a thin glue-like layer wrapping the entire pretzel. In the oven, that layer dries into a shell. Chewy, crisp, glossy. Something ordinary bread never achieves. Those broken sugars and proteins then hit 230 degrees Celsius and char together. This is the Maillard reaction, the same one that sears a steak brown when you pan-fry it. But lye has already laid out the ingredients on the surface, so the reaction fires far faster and far harder than it ever would on plain dough. The result is deep mahogany and hundreds of flavor compounds that a regular oven can't produce from untreated bread. Baking soda triggers this reaction too, but is 40 million times weaker on the pH scale. A baking soda pretzel comes out dull, pale yellow, and flat tasting. The gelatinized starch also creates a smooth surface that reflects light, the porcelain gloss of a real pretzel. Lye leaves a faint alkaline note on the crust, slightly bitter, slightly mineral, impossible to replicate with baking soda. The sticky gel holds coarse salt crystals without needing egg wash, and it seals moisture inside. keeping the interior pillowy while the shell stays crisp. Biting through the crunch into the cloud-soft center, that contrast is the pretzel's signature. A slash across the belly lets the dough expand during baking without tearing the shell. 12 to 15 minutes at 230 degrees. What emerges is dark, fragrant, glossy, with pale dough peeking through the crack like bread showing through armor. Warm, yeasty, faintly alkaline toasted grain. The smell alone could pull someone across a stadium concourse. A prayer-shaped piece of dough from a 7th century monastery became one of the biggest snack industries on the planet. Pennsylvania alone produces 80% of all American pretzels, one state dominating an entire category. Americans eat roughly 600 million soft pretzels a year, 40% of them sold at stadiums and amusement parks. Auntie Anne's started at a single farmer's market stand in Lancaster, Pennsylvania in 1988. Today, the chain runs over 2,000 locations across 25 countries. The global pretzel market exceeds $7 billion a year, all from a monk who twisted dough and a baker who dipped it in lye. And this is where the story flips. Most soft pretzels you've eaten aren't real pretzels. The majority sold at stadiums, malls, and frozen aisles skip the lye bath entirely. They use baking soda, cheaper, easier, safer to handle. But baking soda at pH 8 can't do what lye at pH 14 does. The result is pale, dull, soft bread shaped like a pretzel. No gloss, no mahogany, no alkaline bite. Authentic, lye-dipped pretzels are vanishing outside Pennsylvania and traditional German bakeries. But there's one simple way to tell the difference, and it's right there on the surface. Every food culture has a dish built on a contradiction that shouldn't exist. Mold becomes a delicacy. Poison becomes a preservative. A chemical that dissolves skin becomes the reason the crust is that perfect. The pretzel sits right on that line, where destruction and creation happen in the same 30 seconds. Next time you hold a soft pretzel, look at the surface before you take a bite. A real one has a deep mahogany shine, almost wet-looking with a belly crack that opens naturally where the baker scored it. The crust reflects light. A fake one is pale, matte, dry to the touch. Run your thumb across it. If the surface feels smooth as ceramic and the salt crystals sit embedded in a glassy layer rather than dusted loosely on top, someone dipped that dough into a solution that could dissolve skin and turned it into something you can't stop eating. That's what 30 seconds in a corrosive bath actually create. Not damage, transformation. The same 30 seconds every pretzel for 1,400 years. Rest assured, the sodium hydroxide used in soft pretzels is completely safe to eat. The oven neutralizes it. Every bite is just chemistry doing its job. That's the process. We reveal how things actually work, one story at a time. If there's something you'd like us to explore next, let us know. Until then, trust the process.